kind of doing a public service announcement type of thing today. I had a very big scare today with my daughter right here, Abigail, and I had to call 911. She is fine, everything's okay, but she was basically a missing child for like 30 minutes. Well, maybe longer than that. She is 5 years old, and she's allowed to play outside in our backyard and our front yard. And there's several neighborhood kids around, and I know several of them, and she's allowed to play with them in their yards. But somehow or another, today, she asked if she could play outside, and I told her that she could. I expected her to grab her coat, but she did not. And she went outside. Did you go out through the backyard? Through the front yard? Okay, so she went out through the front yard to play. I came to my bedroom. Actually, I think I was in the kitchen doing something. Then I came to my bedroom. I had just sat down to actually look at my YouTube videos. Not mine, but my subscriptions for YouTube. Literally clicked on the first video that came up, pressed play, and then my doorbell rang. So then I pressed pause. No, Abby. And then I went to the front yard, or to the front door, and our little neighbor girl was at the door. She asked if my daughter Abigail could come outside and play. And I told her, well, yeah, she's already outside. And she said, oh, I don't see her. And I said, okay, maybe she's in the backyard. So I went outside. I looked all over the backyard. Didn't see her. So then I started.
The doghouse?
I did look in the doghouse. I glanced in it real quick. I didn't expect her to be in it. Then I came to the front yard, and I said, well, maybe she went back inside. So I went inside my house, and I called her name, looked all around, didn't see her. So then I was like, maybe she went next to the other next door neighbor's yard or something. So I went back outside, all along toting around my 10-month-old baby. And I didn't have shoes on either. And it's cold outside, and I didn't have a jacket on. And I called her name several times, and I looked all around, and I couldn't find her. And I looked in the backyard again. Instead of just looking briefly, I walked all the way through the backyard, looked on the opposite side of the house from where the gate is. Then I came back around, yelling her name, and then I went and looked inside the doghouse, because she can crawl into it. She's not supposed to, but she does. I looked in it thoroughly, and then I went back into the front yard, and I walked all the way down the driveway, looking down the road, yelling her name over and over and over again. All the while, this neighbor girl was on her bike riding around, yelling her name and looking to see if she saw her anywhere. There were no other kids outside today. There was hardly any cars at home, meaning people were still at work. Kids were still at daycare or wherever. And then I really started to panic. And I thought, okay, I've got to call somebody. I ran inside. I got my jacket on. I got my daughter's jacket on. And the first person I called was my mom. Because I was to that point where you don't know if you should call 911 yet, which if you've ever had to call 911, you always kind of have that point where you're not sure if you should you call or should you not call. You know, you're not sure if you want to be rational when you make the call. You don't want to call for no reason. Even in an emergency, you still have that thought process go through your brain. So I called my mom, and I said, Mom, I can't find Abigail. And I start crying. And my mom says, what? Can't find Abigail. Okay, call 911, call 911. And she hangs up the phone. So, of course, that's what I do. I hang up, and I immediately call 911. And the lady comes on the phone and asks me all different kinds of questions about, you know, how old is your daughter? what color hair, what color eyes, how long is her hair, how was her hair styled, what color shirt, what color pants. I told her she wasn't wearing a jacket. She asked, you know, is there any special place she likes to go when she's outside? Is there anybody's house that she may have gone to? Is there any places that she could be hiding? Have you looked inside thoroughly in every closet and every door, behind the couch, you know, in the laundry room, everywhere? And of course, I've looked everywhere. I looked everywhere, and I called it her name 5,000 times in the house and outside. And by this point, the little girl next door's mom became aware that something was going on, and she came outside to help look.
How did you know it could fit in the box?
And then the opposite, both sides of my neighbors, they became aware that something was going on, so they came outside to help looking. They looked down the alleys. After I had called my mom, she immediately got in the car and started flying over here. And she called everybody that she knew that could come over and help look. So the first person that showed up to help look, besides the neighbors, was a family friend with a daughter that's almost the same age as Abigail. She's in pre-K just like Abigail is. And he, you know, asked, you know, are there houses with kids that she normally hangs out with, you know, or whatever? And there's not really. I mean, there's just a few kids that she really plays with when she's outside. So I told him that mostly she stays right here in this area, but she has been gone down the road a few times because there's a house down there that has kids that I don't really know. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to go down there and knock on doors. So that's what he did. Meanwhile, the cop shows up. The first cop shows up. And he, as soon as he gets out of the car, my across the street neighbor asked if there was something going on. And I told him that we couldn't find my daughter. And then the cop asked, get that out of your mouth, how old she was. I said 5. She said, okay. He said, have you looked inside the house thoroughly? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's the first place we're going to look. And so I said, okay. And so we started walking up into the house just as I saw that family friend, the first person that showed up, walking down the street with Abigail. Thank God she was not kidnapped. She was not, you know, really missing. She wasn't missing anymore. She was found. Oh my God, I was so happy to see her. And apparently she had gone down the street to this house because there was a little boy outside. And that family, whoever they are, let my daughter into their house so she could watch them play video games. It's like, hello, do you not realize this child is 5 years old? I mean, she's tall for her age, but she looks very young, in my opinion. But we don't live anywhere near that house. I mean, it's like clear down the road. It's like, why would you let this child in your house? I mean, come on, people. So yeah, that's where she was for 30 minutes. So he walked her home, and of course the cop had to ask questions, you know, made sure that everything was okay and that we knew the guy that found her, etc., etc. And oh God. And then as soon as we found her, my mom showed up and my brother showed up in separate cars. And my mom was bawling. She was crying so profusely. And of course I was crying off and on as well. But she was crying like crazy crying. Because she was just so worried. My brother was worried. Everybody was so incredibly worried. And of course I tried to call my husband while it was all going on, but he wasn't answering the phone. He was still at work. So I had to tell him after the fact. But, I mean, she literally went missing within like 10 minutes of seeing her. I mean, it was so quick. It felt so fast. So now we've always kind of had these different rules about playing outside. But now we have a new rule that I thought we already had, but apparently she was not aware of it. And what's that new rule? What's the rule? Come here. What's the rule when you go outside and you want to play with somebody?
Ask permission.
You ask permission. What about if they want to go inside their house?
Ask permission.
Yeah, what do?
Ask permission if your mom can come.
If you can go, you come home and you ask permission. Do you go in anybody's house? Do you? Don't do that. Do you go in anybody's car? No. All right. Do you go down the road like that? Where do you stay at?
In the front yard with the backyard.
That's right. So basically, this is a public service announcement for all you people that are parents. Know where your kids are. It's like that old commercial they used to have, that old thing. It's 8 p.m. Do you know where your children are? So, if you have kids, be well aware of where they are. And make sure they know they're not allowed to go in anybody's house without getting permission. If anybody asks them to come in, if they can go in their house, you say no. You say, Mommy says no. I have to ask permission. And then you turn around and you come home and you ask permission. Right? So we are super, super happy that she's okay and everything's fine. I feel bad that I had to call 911 to find her. I guess I could have walked down there and knocked on doors myself, but I did have my 10-year-old on my hip, my 10-month-old on my hip, and it was cold, and I didn't know where to go or what to do. I was in panic mode, as I think most mothers are when things like this happen. I could not, for the life of me, remember what shirt she was wearing. I was able to describe her hair, how it was styled, and I was able to tell them what color pants, and I knew that she didn't have a jacket on. So yeah, that is my public service announcement for the day. If you have kids, teach them to stay in your yard, as well as not go to other people's yards.
And tell them to ask permission.
Tell them to ask permission. All right. That's right, girlfriend. Okay? Is that our video for the day? Yeah. Okay. Say bye-bye. Bye, everybody.